Hello and welcome to The Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of The Gaggle, Buddy, of course, and his colleague, Peter Lavelle, host also of RT's talk show, Crosstalk. Well, Peter, the other day, the House Democrats decided not to consider a bill called the COVID-19 Origin Act that would have compelled the Director of National Intelligence to declassify all information related to the US government investigation of the origins of the COVID virus. It had already passed unanimously in the Senate, but the House, by a narrow vote, turned it down, and so that's it. It's gone. Now, you would have thought this is the same House. This is Pelosi's House that had devoted and wants to devote God knows how much time and resources on investigating January the 6th, move to impeach President Trump twice, can't muster enough interest to find out about the origin of a virus that apparently has killed more than 600,000 Americans and has been an absolutely devastating impact on the rest of the world, continues to be. And indeed, amidst all the talk that the masks are coming back, the lockdowns are coming back, you would have thought that this would be quite an important issue. Let's find out about the origins of the thing. You can even dress it up and say, no, it is not about accusing China or accusing anyone. It is all about finding out about the origin of a pandemic, because we obviously don't want this to happen again in 5 years' time with even worse consequences. So you would have thought that there'd be enough curiosity to investigate this, but apparently not. The Pelosi House is just too busy looking into January the 6th. Peter, what was your take?
Liberals are just remarkably incurious, aren't they? On so many things. On so many things. They just don't have. They can't be bestirred to look into something. I am really glad you brought up the issue of doing an investigation for punitive purposes. I'm not interested in doing that. I want to find out what happened first. We have to find out what happened so it doesn't happen again. I think I know why, George. And I think it has everything to do with Fauci. And I think it has everything to do with the way that Fauci was doling out money. There was a pause on gain of research in gain of function, in the U.S., but not China. Apparently, that's all we can say. Mm-hmm. And so, it was a backdoor. I've heard conflicting reports. I'm going to be very open-minded here, but the safety standards were not great there. Okay, so
there've been a lot of reports along those lines. Okay. It's been going on for years that the safety standards were very sloppy for an institute dealing with something as dangerous as
yes. But it remains an open question, is that and it looks like it was, but you and I haven't read the documents, if there was gain of function being funded by the US government via Dr. Fauci in a facility that wasn't up to snuff, then there's culpability all around. And I think that is the reason why. And also it's the childish Trump derangement syndrome, because the Trump administration was looking into it. And as soon as the Biden administration comes about, they squash it or freeze it. Okay. Why? Why? I mean, we have to find out. They say follow the science all of the time. It's such a discredited term now. But let's find out scientifically what happened and what individuals were involved. Not to put you in an orange jumpsuit, but to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Well, that's the important point. We're all supposed to be terrified of these global pandemics. All these billionaires have been talking about this for years. Well, there's going to be this pandemic and it'll be devastating. Well, yeah, we've had one. We obviously don't want another one. The amount of wealth, not to mention human lives that have been destroyed, has been colossal. We can't go through this every few years. So we want to know about the origins of this thing. And if it is a case that, and the evidence is pretty strong that the US government was funding through Fauci via Peter Daszak and the Eco Health Alliance. The US was funding gain of function research at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. And it does look as if it was done in defiance of the Trump administration, in defiance also of the decree, the ban that was instituted by the Obama administration. So that's a serious business. Now, how that came about, the lab leak and so on, that's moot because it's now so long ago, it's going to be very difficult to establish that. But keep in mind that even the World Health Organization has now changed its tune and is saying that China has got to start cooperating with international investigators. You can't go on obfuscating and talking a lot of nonsense about, the origin is in India and Vietnam, in Italy, in France, the United States. I mean, enough with this nonsense. I mean, it started in Wuhan. We know this, that, that's where, the Chinese would put that huge lockdown in place. We got to find out, what happened, because we can't go through this again.
Well, and again, it's playing petty domestic politics. Pelosi doesn't want to give the Republicans a win. Okay, it's as simple as that sometimes. The fact that they're against transparency is really quite astounding. People that have been victims, all of us have been victims of this, some far worse than others, obviously. We are all universally owed an explanation. And there's no ifs or buts about it, okay? We have to know what happened and who was involved, who made decisions.
I think that's right. Now, the issue of China's culpability, and I think we've talked about this before. I mean, Trump says, well, they're going to have to cough up $10 trillion. Well, I mean, that's going to be a very tough sell. I mean, the United States could try, to do something of those signs, but it's a very dangerous venture. But the problem that the United States has is that it's not going to get the rest of the world behind it in confronting China. I mean, you might get the Europeans on board, but Russia's not going to join. I mean, Russia's already made clear it's not going to join in any kind of anti-China front. I mean, Russia's already made clear under no circumstances will we join any anti-China front in whatsoever, under any circumstances. So without Russia on board, China's doing okay, in which case China should still, therefore, because it's not going to cough up any money, China should cooperate. I mean, that's absolutely essential. It has to cooperate with international investigators.
Yeah, well, because we have such a poisoned environment. I mean, look, you and I have been very, very consistent here on the Gaggle. I'm not looking for a political win, political advantage. I'm not, when it comes to this issue here. You and I have completely separated it, okay, from everything else. The fact is, this is a deadly pandemic, and we have to have answers. And none of us are going to be satisfied with not getting any transparency, right? I mean, I think that it's rhetorical. You can say they must pay. Okay, I don't see the mechanism. I don't see how that's going to happen. And what it does is it sours relations even more. So, by calling for some form of reparation before we have any conclusions is very, again, childish and counterproductive.
It is. But I think, China's lack of cooperativeness, I think, has brought about these kinds of attitudes. Even at this late stage, they're still throwing around these stupid accusations against others. I mean, it just doesn't do China any credit. I mean, it could have cooperated at a very early stage and said, "All right, well, it was in the lab, it won't happen again," and so on. But by just obfuscating, it just creates a lot of very bad feeling towards China, and that has increased. I mean, there's no question. I mean, global bad feeling towards China has definitely increased over the past 12 months.
And it's only going to increase, and it's only going to add to other quote unquote grievances, okay? Because it's quite obvious that we have a new Cold War, and Washington is generating a new Cold War against China. Boris Johnson, in his infinite wisdom, and sending 2 warships permanently to be stationed around the Taiwan Straits. I mean, again, this is this lunacy here. I'm the a kind of person that wants to separate these issues. I don't want to commingle them because I think it muddies the waters and it shows, you're turning this into something that's political. This is a health crisis that got out of control and maybe quite literally got out. Okay, and we have to find that. And I'm just going to maintain my position there. I'm not going to have any kind of anti-China position here. I am disappointed with the lack of transparency. Obviously, I am, and well, all of us should.
And that's it. And that's really the problem that I've always felt that all these issues like Taiwan, Hong Kong, the Uyghurs, lack of democracy in China, the sort
not
of
interested.
That whole Bannon thing, Chinese Communist Party, the embodiment of evil in the modern world, that line. I mean, all that is just stupid, complete waste of time. The pandemic I think is something very different, because when what you do impacts the rest of the world, then the rest of the world has a say in the matter, and the rest of the world then is entitled to an explanation. And so that's why, this is the one area where I think China has behaved badly, and China has got to cooperate. I mean, it just can't go on obfuscating in this way. And I think that issue, I think, has to be separated from all the rest, because, as I said, we can't just keep going through this.
It's called a pandemic for a reason. It's not an epidemic. It's a pandemic. It affects all of us, and all of us collectively should find out what happened to learn, to make sure it doesn't happen again. I mean, we have to be clear to everyone, and because of the miracle of modern medical science, and it really is in the scope of human history, is that 200, 300 years ago, pandemics were a regular thing, awful, terrible thing of human existence. Right. And the miracle of modern science we've been able to really push it back, but it still happens. It still happens. And, and it gets down to this gain of function thing, which I think is, the more you learn about it, the more you say, it just isn't worth it. I suppose if you go to like Antarctica and dig down 10 miles and having this super max thing, then you might kind of move me in your direction, okay?
Right, but that's the point that, I can see the explanation. Oh, well, we want to see what happens when viruses get ever more lethal so that we can develop vaccines against it. Yeah, but, it could be just that you're doing something so dangerous that the consequences are much more dire than if you didn't do anything.
Because you're trying to avoid.
Exactly. Now, it is also possible, because we don't know, and the Chinese haven't been upfront about it, that it may have been part of a biological weapons program. We don't know that, and therefore there might be, another explanation as to why they were doing this gain of function research. But it does seem very, very bizarre to take a virus that doesn't affect humans and manipulate it in such a way that it will actually affect humans. I mean, that does seem a very peculiar activity.
The bioweapon thing that's brought up is that I'm at this point in time, I'm quite skeptical, because if they were thinking about weaponizing it, they would have had a vaccine. They're not fools, okay? Maybe risky, but and also I have to keep going back to it, George, is that people want to. What is the level of culpability of the Chinese? That remains.
I'm just on that point. It could just still be a lab leak theory. In other words, they may have been working on a vaccine, and it just simply got out of hand. So it may have been part of a bioweapons program, but not a complete program.
But see, this is for our viewers. This is the point we're trying to make. Until we get more transparency, then there's a whole spectrum of ideas that are possible. Why don't we have more transparency and start narrowing it down, okay? So people don't go off on wild conspiracies, okay? When there's no transparency or very little of it, then that allows this to happen. That's why mainstream media, when they're peddling all of their conspiracies, it engenders more conspiracies. Why don't we just get some facts? Just the facts, lady, just the facts, okay?
But I think it's a very, very interesting that, to go back to what we were talking about at the beginning, that the Democrats have taken this stance. And I think, I mean, you said that it's about Fauci. I mean, I might think that that was a race, but the fact that he passed the Senate unanimously would indicate that, if they're going to protect Fauci, the Senate would also wanted to protect Fauci. I do think that this is Pelosi. It's Pelosi's house. She doesn't want to give anything to the Republicans. I mean, she's so partisan. She's so obsessed with Donald Trump. I mean, it's a kind of a sickness with her, that she just doesn't want to do anything at all that might strengthen Trump, confirm his argument. So whatever it is, she's going to just stamp her foot down on it.
And the harder she tries, the harder she falls. Right. Where's she gotten to win, George? Right. Where?
No,
she keeps screwing herself and her party. Okay. And, again, when it comes to the issue of COVID, I think most people wanted to say, how did it happen? I don't care what Pelosi thinks did or did not happen or how we learn about it. I don't think that's a partisan issue. I think a lot of people like scratching their head. How did we get here? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I think, again, she is grossly miscalculating this. Okay. Because that is, again, she's making it political 2022. Pelosi, her party didn't want to find out what happened. Why? I mean, it's a gift. It's a gimme.
I would have thought. I mean, I guess she's, like these very narrow-minded partisan Democrats. They give 2 thumbs up. Hey, you screwed the Republicans over again. Just like with this whole select committee to investigate January 6th. They're all clapping their hands with glee, even though she kind of made a fool of herself. I mean, she could easily have just pulled off a quote bipartisan unquote commission, and she would have had all the kudos about it, even though however phony the whole bipartisan aura would have been. But now even that's gone. She can't even pretend that it's bipartisan.
With Liz Cheney?
With Liz Cheney.
But 75 million people just now tuned out.
That's right.
I mean, George, I'm serious. Do you really have any interest what this select committee is going to come up?
No,
I have no interest in it.
We already know. We know the conclusion. So it's like
you read it. Yesterday. You read it yesterday.
Exactly. Start drafting it right now. I mean, we don't have to have any hearings or anything like that. So So that's it. And there's now a story. I think I can't remember. Was it Politico or Axios saying she wants to put Adam Kinzinger onto this bipartisan. So a double act. If only Romney were in the House, not in the Senate. You're going to put Romney on as well. But that's it. She's just a very narrow-minded partisan person. No, she's not ideological. I mean, she's she's living off the fat of the land. Very wealthy woman. Her husband makes a lot of money, trading in stocks. But she's a very partisan and with an obsessive hatred for Donald Trump.
Yep, and she derails everything she touches. Right. Okay, everybody, we're on Locals, so type in the gaggle.locals.com. We're doing, I think even today, a little bit later, George and I are doing a one-on-one Zoom chat with one Gaggler. As you've noticed, the Gaggle store is up and running. There's some nice goodies there. Buddy is nicely profiled. We're working on a Q&A, and live streaming is within our grasp.
Right.
And George?
That's right. And we have a tip jar. So if you're up to it, we would really, really appreciate any tips you can throw our way. We're all, hungry and thirsty. And so, please, whatever help you can offer would be most appreciated. So remember, if you like the Gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye.